Hello to all of our listeners, and welcome back to The Parent Solution, your one-stop shop for all things educational. Today is episode 31. I'm your host, Kimberly, and today I'm talking about the past, present, and future of the current Western schooling system, what the problems currently are, and, it being the parent solution. I'd also like to chat a little bit about how you, as a parent or educator, can mitigate or perhaps even solve these sorts of issues. So, some brief background. The Western education system has been around since the 17th century, and it's grown and evolved since then, of course. There has been some steps that have been taken for progression concerning student learning, but there's also been decisions made that have caused the education system to take a turn for the worse. In the past, Western education essentially taught children how to read and write, how to do math, and there was a religious component aspect of it as well. And as time went on, there was this general sort of acceptance that education was created in order to teach the rules of society to children and show them how to fit in or conform to the world around them. That evolved over time. The 20th century brought the idea of, quote, education for all, unquote, to the classrooms. The government became much more involved in the curriculum, much more involved in schooling, and eventually we had schooling provided for almost every child in Western society. Science became an important part of learning, as did liberal arts. Post-secondary education in the past used to be something that was only a possibility for the wealthy, but more and more focus was placed on the additional schooling that's required for students, dependent, of course, upon the career that they wish to achieve. In the past, there were tests given in order for a student to prove comprehension of the work that was given to them. And if they couldn't pass those tests, they weren't permitted to move to the next grade level until they did. Rules in the school system used to be very strict, and education was pretty much a one-size-fits-all arrangement. Now, fast forward to the present. The present school system in Western society has an acute focus on social politics. In traditional public schools, the government in power is eagerly pushing its social agenda into the classrooms. Parents are no longer a part of the current school system unless they are loud advocates, and they do not tend to have much say in the happenings of the local school. Teachers in the education system are often pushed to one side or the other of the political spectrum, and it puts them in a very awkward position. Oftentimes, teachers in the public education system are having completely inappropriate conversations with students in their classroom, whether that be personal issues of the student or personal issues of the teacher. Students are often taught to trust their teachers before their own parents. They're also told that the teacher is always right. The teacher is believed to be the expert on whatever topic is being taught, even if it is against the fundamental principles that are taught in the student's home. Certain logical and moral thought is no longer accepted in many schools. If a student voices an opinion that is against the mainstream ideals, that student may be disciplined by the governing teachers. Teachers are censored even more so. As I said, they're forced to choose sides in the present school system as the government grows stricter with what is and is not permitted to be taught to children and what curriculum they would like to push. One of the most obvious changes in Canadian schools is that a child can no longer fail a grade. More and more schools are incorporating this standard, or I would say a lack thereof, of a standard. This means that children are being moved from grade to grade without a proper comprehension of basic literacy or math. And some schools of thought believe that children moving from one grade to the next, even if they're unprepared, is going to help their self-confidence. I say that the children who are caught in this predicament are actually losing their self-confidence because they're not learning anything, much less anything of value. These children that are pushed through from grade to grade can graduate without being able to express themselves properly through writing or without even being able to read with proper comprehension. And from there, they're left on their own because colleges and universities are very critical of grade point averages. Failing is still very possible in the post-secondary education system. Curriculum itself is still a one-size-fits-all type of system. And children who can't find a spot inside of it are labeled with these behavioral problems or attention issues. They may or may not find one-on-one support, depending on where they live, but the current curriculum favors children who are visual learners. There's an expectation that every child is going to enjoy coming to class and sitting in one spot to hear a teacher talk about a certain topic. The student is expected to be interested in whatever the professor is interested in. And then the student is supposed to successfully complete the assignment given to them based on the topic of the professor's choice. In the present world of today, post-secondary education is still incredibly expensive, and it's been the most expensive that it's ever been at this point in history, and it's only going to go up from here. Even though teaching has transitioned recently to online and to more online forums, students are still expected to pay full price for their college or university tuition. They pay administration fees, transportation fees, room and board, fees for books, fees for other academic materials. The list goes on. And even though we're in the 21st century, post-secondary education continues to successfully throw each new generation into more and more debt. Fast forward to the future. What does the future look like? My opinion, if the education system stays on its current path, the future does not look pretty. There's going to be more and more students graduating without any real knowledge of academics. This is going to leave a gaping hole in the workforce. Uneducated adults are not going to be able to perform certain functions that are required to have a career in society. Now, this will shed a negative light on the school system in general, but it's going to take a lot of time and more than a few people with a backbone to push the government to place a priority on only passing children who are ready to move from one grade to the next. The children and students that are graduating are going to be much more emotion-based and are going to have an unpleasant surprise when they're applying for post-secondary education. Their first failure was going to come as a shock because they've not been allowed to fail from junior kindergarten to grade 12. They're going to have to learn this sort of life skill outside of the school walls. Moving back into social politics for a second, continuous liberal social politics are going to be pushed in the classroom, and it's going to take more rights away from the parents as the government's agenda becomes the curriculum of the day. This is going to play out in having citizens who can fight for everyone's rights, but who can't write down a grammatically correct speech to prove their point. It produces a student who can care about the discrimination in another country, but can't figure out how to get themselves out of debt. An education system that causes rifts in the family unit is a danger because a strong family unit benefits society. A strong family unit produces children who are socially, academically, and emotionally strong and aware. The public school system is destroying that. If nothing changes, the curriculum is going to stay the same and minimal changes are going to be made only to the social political aspects. Children are going to continue to drop through the cracks as the gap between academic and applied groups widens. The decisions that children make in grade 9 is going to affect their career choices for the rest of their lives. Labels are going to run rampant on children who, quote unquote, misbehave. And the teacher, simply for the lack of resources and time, is most likely not going to try a different way of teaching. Support may or may not be available, depending on the government's priorities. Post-secondary education in the future is going to continue to cost an arm and a leg. It might just cost you 2 arms and a leg. There's too much money being made in that industry. Universities and college will overcharge for degrees, such as early childhood education, business, or creative arts. Post-secondary administration is going to keep trying to present themselves to parents as the best choice, as the best university, with the highest stats. They'll continue to feed that sense of accomplishment that comes with spending thousands of dollars for a signed paper that confirms a student's ability to follow instructions, because that's where our society is headed. So, the solution to all of this starts with you. As a parent or a teacher or an alternative educator, you can start by advocating for the child or the children within your care. Let your voice be heard, especially when it comes to the development of your child or your children within the school system. Take action, whatever it is. Like, the solution looks different for everyone and action looks different for everyone. But there's a variety of things that I'd like to suggest here. This could be in the form of choosing alternate education if you're a parent for your child. It might mean, if you're a parent, having a conversation with your children's teachers in order to be connected and advocate for them and to inform them of what way your child learns best. It might mean taking the curriculum home to help your child through it whenever you have spare time. It might mean getting outside help for those academics and life skills. As a teacher, as an educator, you may want to find resources that offer other sorts of teaching methods that you can try to incorporate into your classroom. But the bottom line is that you have to take action and do whatever it takes to provide better education to the children that are within your sphere. Education, not indoctrination. You have to take time out to teach your child or your children the importance of life lessons. Build that trust. If you're a parent, build that trust with your child by teaching them the skills that they need to excel in life. These skills are things like money, assertiveness, confidence, self-confidence, communication, time management, organization, health and fitness, nutrition. The list goes on, but as a parent, that's your responsibility. When it comes to post-secondary education, as a parent, you want to try your best to ensure that your child is deciding based on what they're passionate about and what they can truly see themselves doing in the years to come. Don't ask your child what they want to do when they grow up. Ask them what problems they want to solve. And that changes the conversation from who do I want to work for to what things and what skills do I need in order to be able to solve this problem. At the end of the day, this choice is going to be up to your child. But if you've done the groundwork as a parent, being a key part of their education, they're going to make the decision that's best for them, and you can be sure of that. And don't be afraid to let them fail, because at the other end of failure is success. Failure is just fuel for motivation for your child. I hope that these sorts of solutions have been insightful and inspiring for you and have made you think a little bit more deeply about just how careful you are when it comes to what's being put into your child's head in the public school system. If you have any comments or questions, you can always find me on social media. It's Star Students on Facebook and LinkedIn, or starstudents.learning on Instagram. You can also reach out through email, which is all over social media channels. Thank you, as always, so much for listening, and I'll be back next week.